Here's what I saw when Charlie Kirk was. The gushing blood points to a jugular vein injury. His arms pulling inward is very typical of decorticate posturing, which occurs usually during catastrophic brain damage. At 200 yards with a rifle, which is what would probably cause that, bullets don't just pass through the neck, they would fragment and destroy everything in their path. With that kind of injury, he would have lost consciousness within seconds and survived for less than a minute and probably felt nothing. Law enforcement always finds the shooter, and violence in response to speech is never justified.
Autopsy just dropped and the reports are wild. Charlie Kirk didn't even feel it. They're saying the second that bullet hit, he was gone instantly. And that's exactly why people can't downplay this moment. It don't matter if you rep the left, the right, or just sitting in the middle. This was a straight up execution. Don't get confused. All assassinations feel sudden, but history shows us some are way more drawn out. I'm not saying Charlie was Dr. King, but look at the difference. When Dr. King was shot in Memphis back in '68, he wasn't gone right away. He fought for hours in that hospital bed while the nation held its breath, praying he might pull through. Same story with Malcolm X in '65. He got rushed to Columbia Presbyterian after the shots rang out, and for a moment, there was still that fragile hope he might survive. That window of suspense made the pain hit even harder. Doctors worked on him for a long stretch at the Audubon Ballroom, but unlike some famous hits, there was no slow fight for life. He was gone fast. Even Medgar Evers, felled outside his own home in Jackson in 1963, made it to the ER still breathing, and Malcolm and King fought on in hospitals for hours. Charlie Kirk had none of that. If the autopsy reads clean, expect language like fatal trauma on impact, no survivable window. That shifts his case into the category of a cold, drop him where he stood style hit. And that detail matters because it screams intent. This wasn't just about shutting him up. It was about making sure he couldn't push back, couldn't speak one last line, couldn't give a final gasp for the record. No epic deathbed moments here, no iconic last speech, just instant silence. That's why Owens and Trump are glued to the autopsy like hawks. If the report backs what people fear, they'll weaponize it as proof. Charlie wasn't a casualty of chaos, he was a marked target, and the speed of his death becomes part of the scandalous story.
That are telling me at just within 48 hours before Charlie passed away, his top Jewish donors were pulling funding from him, demanding that Charlie take their name off of the building that they had donated to Turning Point. I guess I can figure out who that is, how many people could have donated the building. And then once Charlie was killed, they said, never mind, put it back on the building. Okay. Charlie himself had alluded to a tremendous loss of money coming in, and we'll speak about that more. More people are going to come out with information. This is all inevitable. Okay. And I'll also point you in this direction. You guys remember Bibi recently was on a PR blitz, despite the fact that he was, fighting this 96,000 front war because it do nothing. Okay. He was doing a ton of podcasts in America. He went on to Patrick Bet-David's podcast. He went on to Brennan Tatum's podcast. He went on to the Nelk Boys podcast. Anybody find it weird he didn't do Charlie Kirk's show?
Kind of framing hits heavy, especially in a movement built of martyrdom. Candace Owens didn't waste even a breath trying to play polite. From the very first words on her post, she laid it down clear. In her eyes, Charlie Kirk wasn't simply gone. He was taken out. Not passed away, not tragically lost. She called it what she believed it was, an execution in broad daylight, and she went for blood, dragging anyone she thought was twisting the truth about how he died. What set her rant apart wasn't tears, it was raw fury. She admitted she actually wept, something she claims she never does, but then she flipped straight to fire, accusing politicians and media figures of hijacking Charlie's story for their own agendas. She even blasted one major leader by name, accusing him of twisting Charlie's last letter to make it look like he died as his soldier, as if Kirk had pledged loyalty to the system he'd been challenging. Owens wasn't letting that narrative slide. In her words, Charlie had been boxed in, cornered by billionaires and donors who were furious that he gave a mic to voices they wanted silenced, and that pressure cooker was hitting its breaking point right before his death. Trump slid into the story the way he always does, big, loud, and dramatic. His statements pushed the martyr playbook hard, tying Charlie's death to the same "they're coming for me" storyline he's used forever. They tried to take me out. They took him out, and they'll try again for Trump, became the vibe. Charlie turned into proof that the threat is real and constant. That image they pushed, Charlie's face next to US and Israeli flags, lit up the conspiracy circuit like gasoline on a fire. Candace had already started fanning those flames, and this visual only made the buzz crazy.
I can tell you he didn't work alone on the internet, because it seems that he became radicalized on the internet. That's just by watching same things that you're watching and hearing. It looks like he became radicalized over the internet. And it seems like he has wonderful parents, brought in a wonderful neighborhood, smart guy, great boards, great marks, great student. And then something happened to him over a fairly short period of time. It looks like he was radicalized over the internet, and it's radicalized on the left. He's a left. A lot of problems with the left, and they get protected, and they shouldn't be protected. But as you understand, I think very well from the tone of your question. Thank you very much.
It was a split-screen circus. On one side, Owens laying out raw, emotional martyr talk. On the other, politicians pumping Charlie into a symbol to rally the base. Kirk's last days were framed like a man under siege, refusing to bow to money and pressure. Maybe that's what sealed him. Meanwhile, Trump and other heavy hitters blew his death up into a movement anthem, turning grief into a battle cry for patriots who feel hunted.
To wake up. Because I am telling you, this is not a battle between left and right. We all thought that at some point. We believed that. You're my enemy, you're my enemy. It is not a battle between Russia, Ukraine. I don't care what your political issue of the day is. What is happening right now in the world and what just happened to my friend Charlie Kirk is a battle of sheer evil versus goodness.
Most other conservative voices tried to sound calm, but the noise was already deafening. The media went wild. Major outlets put the spotlight on Erica Kirk's widow and her powerful plea to keep Charlie's mission alive. But on socials, it was Candace's furious clips that blew up. Her accusations, her heat, her vow to expose anyone trying to slide into Charlie's seat.
Let me ask you, in the conflict of versus Hamas, who's the good guy?
I believe both Hamas and the government are evil. But I think also that there is no justification.
Are they equally?
There is no justification for the mutilation of thousands of innocent people and children. But let's futile. Let's zero in on it. There is no justification, Mr. Kirk. Hold on. For invading hospitals, for innocent populations, and dragging out a war which is damaging Israel and the West security.
You've made that point, but
it's not a point. It's a moral truth, isn't it?
Okay, yeah. It was also a moral truth that the war started because 1,300 Jews were killed and 200 were taken hostage. And when you declare war on Israel, expect a firestorm in reaction. Let me finish, I let you talk.
Timelines lit up like fireworks. Candace wasn't just sad. She was staking territory, claiming she'd guard his legacy and daring donors, allies, or politicians to step up and prove her wrong. That's the spin war in action. Trump's pumping Kirk into a MAGA martyr, Candace is baking him into a martyr for truth, and the public is left sifting through grief smeared with conspiracy. Now peep the part that got the blogs buzzing hard. Whispers popped about whether Charlie's death was just random or if bigger fingerprints were all over it. Folks keep saying he crossed dangerous people. I've named names before, but from here on I'll call them that blue country in the Middle East, to keep the tea hot without pointing fingers directly. For years, Charlie was the golden boy, the loudest cheerleader in the room. You couldn't catch him on a stage without hearing him hype their government, their policies, that so-called special relationship with America. He raised money alongside their lobbyists, defended them on college campuses, and wore the role proudly. He was the face of loyalty. But about a year back, the tone shifted. It wasn't a screaming break, more like a subtle drift. Instead of pouring out endless praise, he started sliding in sharper questions. Instead of parroting talking points word for word, he gave a mic to guests who weren't fully locked into the narrative pushed by that blue country in the Middle East. And if you know politics, then you know even a small crack can look like treason to powerful ears. Fast forward to just days before his death, and Charlie's sit down with Ben Shapiro hit the blogs heavy. Rumor has it that convo got tense.
Ben, some people would accuse of wanting to ethnically cleanse. Some people in the government are saying, again, it's all over the place, right? You have opinions all over. In your opinion, what would a good outcome 5 years from now be, and how does one respond to the claims of ethnic cleansing?
So ethnic cleansing, the idea, presumably, that population movement is equivalent to ethnic cleansing. I think ethnic cleansing is a term that's been fairly recently coined to describe population movement during war. And the reality is that's been ongoing for literally all of human history. The idea that is, quote unquote, forcing people out of the Gaza Strip, that is not the stated policy of the government. The idea is if people want to leave, they can, but they're not being forced to leave.
Charlie, pressing harder than usual, asking about policy, influence, and exactly who's cashing in from those billions America ships overseas. That shift had folks whispering maybe he wasn't the golden boy anymore. Looking back, that interview gives chills. It reads like a highlight reel people replay, now saying, yep, that was the moment he cashed his own ticket. And that's where Candace Owens' podcast flipped the switch straight into conspiracy mode. She said Charlie was under real heat from billionaires and donors, the same folks who didn't want him opening that door wider. The internet's whisper network went next level, claiming those donors weren't just rich Americans, but allies of that blue country in the Middle East. If Charlie was about to move off the script, that tiny pivot suddenly looked dangerous as hell. Plenty of critics of that region say they got smeared, deplatformed, or cut off from funding. The storyline got simple: speak up and pay a price. In Charlie's case, some now whisper the price wasn't just losing checks, it was death.
However, and I will say this, the behavior by a lot, both privately and publicly, are pushing people like you and me away. Not like we're gonna be pro-Hamas, not like we're gonna, but we're like, honestly, the way you are treating me is so repulsive. I have text messages, Megan, calling me an anti-Semite.
I'm not calling this a fact, but the timeline looks real suspicious. A whole year of subtle shade, that tense sit down with Shapiro, Candace screaming about billionaire pressure, and then boom, Charlie's gone in an instant. No chance to fight back, no chance for last words. That's why the streets keep asking, was this random violence or was it a message? Loud and clear for anyone else thinking of breaking ranks. But let's zoom out for a second. History shows us the biggest threat isn't always the outside enemy, it's betrayal from the inside. And that's the whisper crawling all over Charlie's story. Not just who pulled the trigger, but who stood to gain the second he was off the board. Because Charlie wasn't just some regular activist, he was a whole brand, a walking, talking movement. Turning Point USA wasn't just a student club, it was a multi-million-dollar machine with billionaire backers. And Charlie was the golden boy at the center. Take him out, and suddenly there's a throne sitting empty, a vacuum begging to be filled. And now everybody's lining up, acting like they honor him, but really eyeing that chair. Plenty of folks been eyeing that empty seat, and Candace Owens didn't sugarcoat it. She flat out warned about people trying to slide into Charlie's chair, and that wasn't just a cute metaphor, that was a warning shot. She knows the game is ruthless. One day, you're the voice of the youth. The next day, your so-called allies are already lining up auditions to take your spot. And if you think that sounds over the top, history tells a different story. Julius Caesar didn't fall to random strangers. It was the very senators he trusted that ran the knives through him. Betrayal is older than power itself, and it always comes from close. So the burning question is, who profits most from Charlie going silent? Was it the billionaire donors who allegedly thought he was drifting from their script, other conservative influencers who've been jealous of his spotlight for years? Or maybe the political heavyweights who'd rather scoop up his energy and fold it into their brand instead of risking him breaking free and going rogue? I'm not saying Charlie's inner circle plotted against him, but let's be real. The streets are side-eyeing how quick the vultures showed up. Turning Point leadership already whispering about continuity, while other MAGA voices dropped tributes that sounded way too much like audition tapes. And loudest of all, Candace Owens swearing she'll guard his legacy while making it crystal clear she's the one who knew the real Charlie better than anyone. But here's the twist, sis. What if it wasn't betrayal at all? What if there was no billionaire plot, no donor scheme, no foreign hand pulling strings? What if this was just one man, one trigger, one split second of violence with no grand conspiracy attached? Even if that's the raw truth, does it even matter anymore? Because in today's world, perception is reality. And with Candace, Trump, and the whole movement already branding it an execution, once that narrative locks in, facts don't even stand a chance. So what do you think? Was Charlie Kirk taken out by a bigger plot, or was it really just one random act? Drop your thoughts in the comments, hit like, share, and subscribe, and I'll catch you on the next one.